Hello! Happy almost end of ballet season. Are you all getting excited to send your kids off to their summer programs? I know I'm getting excited for Abby to go to hers, and I'm sure Sam's really looking forward to his break.
He's got a couple weeks off.
We've recently got some questions from parents about friendships in ballet studios and how they manage them, especially when your closest friends can also be your fiercest competition. This can sometimes get a little complicated, and we've got some tips on how to smooth the way. We're not here to tell you how to parent your children at all, but we can tell you what we've seen and what our kids have experienced and what has kind of worked for them to kind of help build those friendships within the studio in really competitive environments. So first, ballet breeds insecurity, and that insecurity manifests in a variety of ways. One way it comes out is kids being mean to each other. This culture of meanness really does usually result from the school staff turning a blind eye to how their students are treating one another. In our experience, we have noticed a trend that when students feel valued and the school has created a more nurturing environment, and the negative interactions between students tends to appear to have lessened. It is not across the board, but that is definitely something that we have noticed. The more invested they are in culture, it tends to be a little bit better. One thing we've noticed is that schools seem to recognize that culture does start from the top, and it appears that more administrators are recognizing that there is more to developing a dancer than just the technique. More and more, we are seeing them focus on the whole person rather than just the ballet stuff, and that is a really, really good sign.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes it's more than just the steps.
Yeah.
So we actually, when we got this question from parents, we talked with a bunch of dancers, and this is the one thing they told us above all else. Did y'all see the movie Fight Club? Remember the first rule of Fight Club is we don't talk about Fight Club? That goes for ballet apparently too. Our kids emphatically told us, do not talk about what happened in the studio outside of the studio.
Right.
They did say, yeah, you want to talk about, your cranky teacher that day and how they really just were like kind of a pain in the neck? Sure. But they said, leave the other stuff alone. They said this is really the foundation to maintaining friendships with your fellow ballet students. And you may be huge competitors in the studio, and that's not uncommon at all, but that all stays there when they leave.
Yep.
The other thing they said really separate the friendships from the ballet. I think that's an important thing to just recognize that your friends are your friends, and they may also be your competitors, but they're your friends first.
So true. Ballet friendships, like many competitive activities, grow out of mutual respect based on competition, hard work, dedication, and most important, the challenges and the triumphs. Friendships really matter. So does success in ballet, but those things are not mutually exclusive. You might hear that people say that their friends are also their fiercest competitors. And is that a bad thing? Well, sometimes it seems like it, but ballet is not a zero-sum game. One does not have to fail in order for the other to succeed. For example, Abby's closest and oldest friend was her stiffest competition when they were both competing. And they would stand on the wings and cheer for each other. Regardless of outcomes, they were always each other's biggest cheerleader. And to have someone in your corner like that really is an incredible gift. And we're really hoping that more students focus on supporting each other through these, because you need to be there for the successes and the lows. And there are certain times a year when things definitely do get more hyper competitive. Let's take summer intensives, for example. At a certain age, most serious dancers start to audition and attend summer intensives. Some will get into all of them. Some might get into a few but get rejected. And then there are the rare instances where a dancer doesn't get into any. And sure, it really might cause some transient jealousy, but it does pass. And everyone needs to understand that you can't take it personally. It does not mean that one kid is better than another. Really, what it means is that on that one day, that one kid may have had a better audition. And frankly, A month later, no one really remembers what happened.
Nobody remembers any of it.
Most of these things really are transient. Friendships last a lot longer than one summer or even one show. And so keeping that perspective really is helpful. These kids realize that a lot of what happens in the studio, especially around these really stressful times, stems from insecurity and pressure. They have an amazing ability to not take this stuff nearly so personally because they realize a lot of the times it's not. It's not a personal thing.
No, it's not personal, but kids just get super stressed.
And yeah, sometimes they lash out at each other, unfortunately.
Right, exactly. So I do want to tell you a story about, stress around a show, but also a real show of friendship that Sam experienced this year. So he's in the second company of Houston Ballet, as I think you know. The HB2 kids were getting ready for their spring show, and he was cast in a piece that was really challenging. It was really pushing him. And honestly, he was struggling with part of it. There were two casts because there were two different groups that were going to be performing it. And the male dancer that had Sam's part in the other cast, he's a terrific dancer, and he really had this down. He really just knew it cold. And he didn't really have to do this, but what he ended up doing, along with two of the women from HB2, is they spent hours with Sam in the studio over the last few months working with him to get his part right. And, that it would have been so easy for the other guy to be like, sorry, dude, you're on your own. Sucks to be you. Sorry you don't get it. And honestly, it would have made that kid look a lot better in the show. But this kid didn't do that. And these two, I can't underscore this enough. These two boys are vying for the same roles and will ultimately be going after the same jobs. So this kid had nothing to gain by this, nor did the two women who were offering to help him. The thing they did that was so fantastic is they were brutally honest about his deficiencies. I mean, they were saying, it needs a lot of work. But they weren't trying to be mean. It was just direct. And it was so helpful. And Sam honestly maintains that there was no way he would have gotten through this show without their help. The moral of the story here is that good friends lift each other up, even when they have nothing to gain from it. And, we want to leave you with something here. No one loses by being nice. And Sam's going to remember their kindness for a heck of a lot longer than he might remember any random spats the students have had with each other over kind of dumb stuff that happens in the studio.
Yeah, what an incredible experience for Sam to really see that level of kindness and generosity and of time and energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it made him feel fantastic just to know that he had people in his corner.
Yeah. And on the other hand, students can lose a lot if they aren't nice. And it may not happen overnight, but eventually one's behavior does catch up with them. And you never know where that kid will end up. We have heard of dancers bouncing around to various companies because they're jerks. And no one wants to work with a jerk overall.
No, they don't.
It's just too hard. And you might see that this dancer is really good, but if they are a jerk or really unpleasant to work with, the reputation does precede them. And in one case, you might think, well, they're 14. It doesn't really matter. It's fine. And that 14-year-old is lording over everyone. And you're like, oh, well, maybe they'll outgrow it. And hopefully they do. But sometimes they don't. And it really does catch up with them at some point. And it does sound transactional, but it is important to remember that these friendships at these ages coincide with one's professional network, and which admittedly is really a unique feature of ballet. And aside from that, core work really does require cohesiveness. And if that cohesiveness isn't there, then everyone can see it on stage. And they really do need to operate like a well-oiled machine, or things just don't work. And this goes for a major company or small local studio performing pieces from Giselle. If you don't have to love each other, and you don't even really have to like each other, but you have to have mutual respect, and that is critical in creating the success of the cohesiveness of the group.
Right.
And there is a practical matter around studio friendships. While one is not, everyone's not going to have a professional career.
Right.
That's just, unfortunately, the logistics of this. Having friends in the ballet world will really help you when you wind up going pro. Remember all that networking that we've talked about? How do you think all those galas happen in the summer? How do you think dancers get chosen for it?
It's their buddies.
Buddies.
It's
It's
totally
their friends.
buddies. Yeah.
There's a reasons why it's called Roberto Ballet and Friends and not Roberto Ballet Gala, right? You pick your buddies, who you want to dance with, who you want to spend time with, who you want to choreograph on and create something new. Not to mention, you never know who the next choreographer is going to be. And it might not be the best dancer in the class.
Right.
But don't think that that person hasn't forgotten how they were treated by others in their classes. And your reputation really does follow you. And here's another reason why friendships are so important. Much of ballet is about critiques and corrections. And it's the only thing we can think of where the more corrections you get as a kid, the more the kid feels seen in class.
How messed up is that?
It's so messed up.
So messed up.
So, when every authority figure is telling a kid what is wrong with them, they need to improve their turnout, get stronger, lengthen. that word. Kids really need to lift each other up. Again, no one loses by being nice. Sometimes it may look that way at the time, but trust us. Play the long game on this one. Be nice to everyone. Have fun backstage. Be kind. Don't push people out of the way. It's not necessary.
Right.
And that will follow you eventually.
I totally agree. And also, as your dancer gets older, you're going to start hearing them refer to their ballet family. And yes, it's a thing.
It's a thing.
By high school, these kids are together more than they are with their real family. And if they're at a residential ballet school, it's the only people they see.
Yeah.
They see your dancer at their highest highs. They see them at their lowest lows. And when our kids were at their ballet program, we saw this happen. This is just one little story. During a run of shows, several students were cast in core parts, which is not uncommon for the upper level students. No. There was a last minute casting change, and one of the upper level students was put into the cast at the last minute. She was not aware of this. So two other students saw this change, but did not bother to call the dancer who was cast at the last minute.
Why wouldn't they call her? What are they
I don't know. They gained nothing from that. So finally, another dancer called the student who hightailed it over to the theater. I wonder who will be remembered as the one who came through. And, who's the real friend here? It's crazy.
And it's unnecessary.
Right. It is. And also, if your dancer continues down this path, they're going to hit bumps. Every kid hits their speed bumps, and sometimes those bumps are really, really big.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story about what happened to Sam last year. Yes, he is in the second company of Houston Ballet, and he's really happy there. And you're probably thinking, well, this kid's had it so easy. He's had a smooth run. And in a lot of cases, yeah, that's true. He's been pretty fortunate. But last February, he got told that he was being passed over for a trainee spot at his former school and that they wanted him to repeat his level. This was a crushing blow to him. He had been shooting for that trainee spot since he was 13. And when he didn't get it, he really went off a cliff emotionally. And he was in a pretty dark place. And had it not been for his dance friends, I'm not really sure where he'd be today. And I'm not being overly dramatic when I say that they really saved him. He was living away from home. Now, granted, we were in the same area, but we didn't see him on a day-to-day basis. But these guys did, and they rallied around him. And they knew exactly what he needed at the time. There were 4 fellow students who basically kept him afloat. And I have to say, to this day, I am truly grateful for what they did. And to make matters worse, his roommate at the time was offered one of those coveted trainee spots. In some instances, this could have signaled the end of a really close friendship. Like, what happens when your best friend gets the spot that you desperately wanted?
Could have made for a very difficult living environment.
Absolutely. No, it was really tough. But, in fact, it didn't. It actually strengthened their relationship. Why is that? I don't know, but I think because both knew that their friendship was more important than this one event, what it really showed was a level of kindness on the part of Sam's roommate.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he knew what Sam needed at the time, and he was a supportive friend. And honestly, Sam's been in enough competitive situations to know that their friendship was really separate than their in studio rivalry. And let me tell you, that was a very strong rivalry.
Yeah.
And, even though they're not in the same place today, it still continues. Like, that doesn't end just because you're in different places.
No. I mean, and there are always people around you who push you. And there's a difference between an in studio rivalry and, inside the studio or outside the studio. And those are very, very different things.
Right, exactly. And, some kids might stop dancing when they're 15, they might stop dancing when they're 25, and they might stop dancing when they're 40. But the friendships that they develop in the studio, those can last a lifetime, and that really matters. And that is really the thing we want to leave you with, is that the friendships in the long run are as important as the ballet success.
Absolutely. And especially because right now the ballet world feels so big, right? But as your kid gets older and older and they move into these professional spaces, the world actually is very, very small. And even when people move on, you've been through a situation that so few people have been through together.
Right.
Like, there aren't that many people in the world that knows what it's like to go through a 32 show run of, Nutcracker, or, 10 days straight of going to class all day and then doing shows every single night. And, you're basically living off of, the Quickie Mart next door and, Red Bulls. Like, we're not advocating for that, but but
it happens.
But those friendships are formed that way, and it is so cool that they will have those memories for a lifetime. And so letting petty things like what happened in the studio get in between those experiences and that friendship that you have built is a loss for everyone. So just keep that in mind when you're advising your kids through those tough moments. That there is a bigger picture out there. And if you can let some of those smaller petty things go, that you really can have lifelong, wonderful friendships from people who scatter all over the world.
Absolutely. And your kids, if they go that far, they will have friends all over the world, and they will cherish them.
Yeah, and it's really special. So that brings us to the end of our time with you. Thank you so much for watching. And if you like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel, sign up for our newsletter at ballethelpdesk.com, and like and follow us on Facebook. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.